The man had been screaming for 11 minutes. Tasha stood behind the return counter, her feet throbbing from a shift that began at 5:30. Across from her, the man clutched a broken vacuum cleaner, its power cord bound in thick, uneven layers of gray duct tape. He lacked a receipt, he lacked the original box, yet he demanded a full refund. He paced the narrow strip of linoleum, his voice rising, hurling sharp insults that targeted Tasha directly. She gripped the edge of the counter, her knuckles turning white against the laminate. The manager had vanished 9 minutes ago with a promise to return, leaving her alone in the open. Above them, the red light of the security camera blinked with cold, mechanical indifference, recording every second of the outburst. The man lunged closer, his face flushing deep crimson as he gestured wildly with the broken machine. He was waiting for a reaction, a crack in her composure, a reason to push harder. Tasha watched the veins pulse in his neck, the air in the store growing heavy with the weight of his uncontained rage. She did not blink, she did not retreat. She simply stood, absorbing the noise, while the line of customers behind him shifted in restless, impatient silence. Tasha knew the policy by heart. She could dismantle his logic point by point, watching his face redden as the line of 7 customers behind him grew restless. She could point to the missing receipt, the lack of a box, and the clear violation of store guidelines. She could force him to listen to the reality of his own error. But she also knew the inevitable outcome, a summons to the manager's office to explain her lack of decorum. The system demanded compliance, not truth. She chose silence. When he finally gasped for air, she spoke with rhythmic, measured precision. "Sir, I hear you. The policy is posted on the wall. My manager will address this shortly." Her voice remained flat, devoid of the irritation he craved. He lunged forward again, veins bulging in his neck, redoubling his volume to bridge the gap she had created. She did not meet his intensity. Instead, she retreated into a heavy, impenetrable stillness. She pulled her focus inward, anchoring her feet, and refused to provide the reflection his rage required. She stood as a wall of calm, watching the man exhaust his own momentum against a surface that offered no friction. Centuries ago, under similar harsh artificial light, another stood in a silent hall. Jesus. Hauled through the night between 3 rulers, stood before Pontius Pilate. Stripped and bloodied, he listened as the chief priests piled accusations high. He stirs the people, he claims to be a king, he defies Caesar. Pilate peered at him, waiting for a spark of defense. The record of the time confirms the result. He answered not a word, leaving the governor struck by a profound, haunting wonder. He possessed every answer yet offered none. As the prophets predicted, he went to the slaughter like a lamb, his mouth closed. This silence was not a surrender. It was a firebreak. It left the authority figure unsettled, unable to anchor his power against a man who refused to fight on his terms. This was the same stillness Tasha now inhabited behind the counter. She was no longer just an employee waiting for a manager. She was tapping into a lineage of restraint. The man across from her continued to shout, but the noise no longer reached her center. She held the silence, and in that silence, she held the floor. The power dynamic shifted, leaving the aggressor to pace in a vacuum of his own making. The manager finally stepped into the frame. He glanced at the duct tape machine, then at the man's empty hands. A short shake of the head was all it took. The denial was absolute. The man froze for a heartbeat. Then his face surged with a deep, pulsing red. He turned his entire weight toward the manager, his screams rising to a pitch that echoed off the store walls. It was the peak of his performance, a desperate demand for a reaction that refused to come. Tasha stepped back from the counter. Her movements were slow, deliberate. She reached down, pulled a water bottle from beneath the surface, and unscrewed the cap. She took a long, slow drink, feeling the cool liquid against her throat. She did not look at the manager. She did not look at the man. She focused entirely on the rhythm of her own breathing. 3 deep inhales, 3 steady exhales. The sound of the man's shouting continued, but it felt distant, like a storm trapped on the other side of thick glass. She had successfully detached herself from the chaos. She had refused to become the mirror he needed. The store was still loud, but for her, the air had finally gone still. At 4, she walked to her car. The door clicked shut, sealing out the hum of the parking lot. She sat in the driver's seat long after the engine was off. listening to the ticking of the cooling metal. She had won no argument. She had received no praise. She felt invisible. Yet, as she stared through the windshield, she realized she had not mirrored the malice from across the counter. She had held her ground without becoming the chaos she faced. Her hands rested on the steering wheel, steady and cool. This was the lesson buried beneath the noise. Some fires die only when you refuse to feed them. Some attacks lose their sting when they meet nothing but air. The man had fought for a reaction, but he left with nothing but his own echoes. She had kept her center intact. The dignity of restraint is not a surrender. It is a firebreak. It is the ultimate victory to stand amidst the storm and remain untouched. She turned the key, started the engine, and pulled away, leaving the noise of the store to dissolve into the quiet of the road ahead.